Good evening, everyone. Myself, Vinita C., first year MSc, Department of Food Science and Nutrition, Yuvarajas College, Mysuru. Today, I'm going to talk about antimicrobial activity of fenugreek. Introduction. Fenugreek is one of the major spices of human food, native to Mediterranean, Europe, and Asia. Leaves and seeds are used in food and also in Ayurvedic medicinal system. They are known for their valuable antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-cancer and anti-inflammatory properties. This is the taxonomy of fenugreek plant. The morphology of fenugreek plant parts. These are the fenugreek plant parts. The nutritional composition of fenugreek seeds. So water 8.84 grams, ash 3.4 grams per 100 grams, calories 323 calories, kilocalories, total carbohydrates 58 grams, dietary fibers 25 grams, and so on. So phytochemistry. Experiments were conducted on various bacteria using different extracts to find out the antimicrobial activity of fenugreek. In 2016, Darshan Darajia et al. Studied antimicrobial activity of fenugreek using E. coli bacteria. As a treatment, they used methanol extract of 100 mg per milliliter. As a result, 9.33 plus or minus 0.57 milliliter of zone of inhibition was observed. In aqueous extract of 100 mg per milliliter, the zone of inhibition was found to be 10.50 plus or minus 0.50 millimeter, whereas in ethanol and hexane extracts, the inhibition was found to be nil. In P. aeruginosa, the methanol extract of 100 mg per milliliter showed 9.50 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas in ethanol and hexane extract showed nil. In B. cereus, the methanol extracts of 100 mg per milliliter showed 11.50 plus or minus 0.50 milliliter of a zone of inhibition. Ethanol showed 11.33 plus or minus 1.15 millimeter of zone of inhibition, but hexane extract at zero zone of inhibition. In 2017, Alan M. Alwan et al. Studied antimicrobial activity of fenugreek using E. coli bacteria of 75% of methanol extract per milliliter and showed 20 millimeter of zone of inhibition. The aqueous extract of 75% per milliliter showed 22 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In P. aeruginosa, the methanol extract of 75% per milliliter showed 25 millimeter of zone of inhibition, and in aqueous extract of 75% per milliliter showed 20 millimeter. In 2017, Sharma V. et al. Studied antimicrobial activity of fenugreek using 75% of methanol extract in 100 milliliter. 20 milliliter was found to be the zone of inhibition. The aqueous extract at zero zone of inhibition, whereas acetone extract showed 16 millimeter of zone of inhibition with 75% of milliliter extract was taken. In Staphylococcus, the zone of inhibition was found to be 19 millimeter when 75% of methanol extract was taken per 100 milliliter. The aqueous extract showed 100 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas acetone extract had zero zone of inhibition under a concentration of 75% per milliliter. In 2011, Mayasa E. Abdullah studied about antimicrobial activity of fenugreek using certain bacteria. In S. aureus, the methanol extract of 1000 mg per milliliter showed 24 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas aqueous extract showed zero zone of inhibition. In P. aeruginosa, the methanol extract of 100 mg per milliliter showed 20 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In E. coli bacteria, the methanol extract of 1000 mg per milliliter showed 26 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In Proteus vulgaris, the methanol extract of 1000 mg per milliliter showed 17 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas in acetone extract it showed 12 millimeter of zone of inhibition when 1000 mg per milliliter was taken. In 2014, Mona S. Al-Hibi et al. Studied antimicrobial activity of fenugreek using certain bacteria. In E. coli bacteria, the aqueous extract of 20% per milliliter showed 18.2 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In chloroform extract of 20% per milliliter showed 28.2 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In S typhi, the aqueous extract of 20% showed 22.4 millimeter of zone of inhibition. In chloroform extract of 20% per milliliter showed 34.6 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas in ethanol extract showed 0 zone of inhibition. In Klebsiella pneumonia, the aqueous extract of 20% per milliliter showed 25.7 millimeter of zone of inhibition, whereas in chloroform, methanol and ethanol showed 36.3, 25.5, and 11.1 zone of inhibition, respectively. In Shigella soni, the aqueous extract showed a nil zone of inhibition, whereas chloroform, methanol, and ethanol showed 38.4, 27.3, and 19.1 millimeter of zone of inhibition. Conclusion: several health beneficial attributes of spiced fenugreek have been experimentally evidenced in recent years, which have the potential for possible therapeutic application. Fenugreek is rich with a wide variety of metabolites such as tannins, alkaloids, flavonoids, terpenoids, and glycosides, which are known to have antimicrobial properties. Methanol extracts of concentration 1000 mg per milliliter showed highest zone of inhibition of 26 millimeter in E. coli bacteria, whereas aqueous extract of fenugreek showed lowest zone of inhibition of 9.33 plus or minus 0.57 millimeter in P. aeruginosa. It is also known for its high oxidative, anti-inflammatory, anti-cancer, and anti-hyperglycemic properties. Thank you.